Alright, what's up guys? We just got to Maastricht. Got Red here. Scott, we got the champagne to celebrate. What are the first impressions?
Been good so far. Just finished unpacking the room. We got our wine, our champagne, going to get some dinner at the bars in a little bit.
Yeah, we just met. Can I just call you William?
Alright. Can take a little while to open.
Do us the favors.
Fucking Europe. Let's get crazy. Let's go.
Hey, pour this one up for Tiger Royale, baby. Alright, here's to the next 6 months. Alright, this probably shouldn't make the vlog, but I think it might have to.
You know, Wilson and I were at a bar for a while. We walked out, couldn't find our bikes. I think they were stolen. Or we're just kind of like stupid and couldn't find our own bikes. Oh my gosh, this is brutal.
What
This was
time
not
is
a great.
it?
This yeah. What time is it? It is,
What time is it?
It's 4 a.m.
It's one way to start off the trip.
It can only get better, right?
We just hopped off our first train. We're in, what is it, Liège right now?
Liège.
Yeah, Liège. Look at the train station back here. It's pretty sick. But yeah, we're on our way to Berlin right now. We just got off at a random train in Cologne. And we just walked outside and apparently the cathedral's right here, but it's pretty sick.
Got to Berlin. Long ass train ride. Got into this hotel. This room was smelling like absolute dog shit.
We stopped at a grand bar though. It was really good. Good food.
Yeah, probably not going to be much footage from the bars here because
Yeah, it's explicit.
Rotterdam started off as a little fishing village, and eventually the East India Dutch Company ended up creating a base here. The settlement grew, and now I think it's the biggest world or in Europe. I think Europe.
Yeah,
no, it's Europe, right? In the world.
The world, yeah.
And it's also really known for its too. The first building we saw here is kind of weird. Red would be a little scared to be up there. The reason for that is because during World War II, Germany offered the Netherlands to surrender, which they did, and they gave it up, but the bombers were already on the way. The town ended up getting bombed, and instead of rebuilding the classical, like a lot of other cities did, they ended up making some weird stuff, so we'll see some of that today. Pulling up to the market right now. We're gonna go check that out. This is not what I expected of the market, but it looks pretty sweet.
Made my salted fish pastry from the market.
Worst fight ever.
Got laughed at by girls right before.
It's alright, you'll recover. He's gay now though, so it doesn't really matter. Just got the raw herring, which we were told to eat here. Little Dutch. Yeah, we're gonna. Not many Dutch foods, but we're gonna try this. Cheers. Not a big fan. Good. Try it. The more you bite, it just gets mushier, but he's acting like he likes it.
The mushy part sounds fun. It tastes fine.
I thought the market was pretty sick, and right across from it is actually the cube houses. Yeah, so I guess these are pretty famous. They're each an individual tree, and together they make a forest. That's what I looked up on Wikipedia. So we walked over here, and you can kind of see in some of these that people are actually living in them.
We're in the cube house. We paid €2 to get in, and here's what our kitchen looks like. So it's very ergonomically correct.
It's like a lot bigger than I thought it would be in here. So I asked them on the way out how much it cost for one of these, and apparently they're only like $400,000, which I don't think's too bad. Somehow we end up in a casino and Red's going crazy over the slot machines. Walking across this bridge right now, a pretty cool view of the city. Everything was pretty much closed today, so I think we're just gonna walk around a little bit more. We got to at least go in those houses, check out the supermarket.
We're sitting down in Rotterdam having a beer, some food. I got the Rand double buck.
Yeah, chicken tenders, ordered fries.
Cheers to Rotterdam.
Today we're in Luxembourg. Me and Red, we got a big group, but they went ahead. Right now we're in the Casemate. It's on the 10th century. Count Siegfried, I believe, built these tunnels where we're at right now. There's a lot more extensive, but they were later expanded on by like a ton of other different occupiers of the city. Can you read off some of the names? Like Napoleon the First visited these.
Emperor Joseph II of Austria, Prince Henry of the Netherlands, Grand Duchess Charlotte, and Grand Duke Henry, and Grand Duchess Maria Theresa.
That's pretty cool so far. Pretty city.
Yeah, very pretty.
And there's a cool spot overlooking the city right here that I'm gonna show you guys. Walk up the stairs, and boom. It's pretty cool. It'd be awesome if those willow trees were out there right now. All right, just learned a cool little fact about this place too. So the reason Napoleon visited here is because the French Revolutionary War, and the French actually attacked this wall, like the city as a whole, which I just learned is apparently the world's tallest city. I don't know if that's a wall or if it's like the city itself. But they actually weren't even able to successfully take it over. It's pretty cool that not even Napoleon was able to like militarily take over the city because of the wall.
You pulled up and saw the park right here. That was pretty dope.
So pretty.
Pretty park.
Big scenery guy.
Love scenery. Love scenery.
So we just took a little hike outside the city and we're at the American Cemetery. Just stopped in the visitor center and had a good talk with the guy, and we learned some pretty interesting new stuff. So first of all, Patton was actually in the Olympics for the United States in the military pentathlon. I'm not sure how well he did, but I thought that was pretty cool. And then also he fought in World War I and was actually shot in the leg and almost died from it, apparently. So it's crazy to think, like, the butterfly effect of history. So the 3rd Army was actually stationed in Luxembourg, and that's why a lot of the soldiers were buried here, as well as Patton, because he requested to be with the soldiers. We're walking up to Patton's grave right now. This is pretty cool. So his grave's right there, and he's leading his 3rd Army still. Here's a better shot of the grave. And the chapel, the battle maps, American flag, and all the other soldiers that died here. 5,076 headstones. 118 of these are in the shape of the Star of David, indicating Jewish soldiers. 22 sets of brothers are buried side by side. And there are 101 crosses of unknown service members. This was one of the Medal of Honor recipients who actually fought in Luxembourg. This was actually one of the members in the Band of Brothers, which we still got to learn the history on that. Red didn't do his job.
Okay, all that came up was like the documentary or the series TV.
That's all right. But this guy's name was John Julian, so we'll have to find the history on him later.
I thought this was the best view of the cemetery from this angle in the middle. You can really see how many people like are here. Yeah, I thought it was cool. Good stuff.
But you may be wondering, where's Scott today? He's not here. He's not here.
Let me tell you a little bit about why Scott's in this. Luxembourg is supposed to be us, and like maybe the 2 other chicks, 2 ladies. I'm not even sure. But then out of nowhere, he just invited these 3 girls. They're all really hungry, and then he tricks them into thinking that there's a restaurant into one of the
In the cave we were in.
like, oh, there's a restaurant here. Like, oh, okay, they're super excited. Went in there, there's no restaurant. They're just so hungry, and they were pissed. And then,
We got more.
I think that's it, actually. They're not cut.
We just got to Interlaken. Got this pretty view. Coming on the train was pretty awesome too. Plan is to ski. I'm gonna ski the next 2 days. I think they're Red and Nate are gonna do something different the 2nd day, but yeah, it's pretty awesome here so far. All right, we stopped at the cheapest restaurant we could to try some Swiss food. What did you get?
Raclette.
What is that?
It's really just bacon, cheese, pickles, and potatoes.
I got the Alperin Mangolin or something. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's mac and cheese, potatoes, ham, and then apparently I put some applesauce on it. On the way to the train station right now to go skiing. Pretty excited. I've always wanted to do this. Got this beautiful view in the background. It's a dream come true. So we just picked up the skis for rentals, and I thought there was no way, but they have the twin tip vocals. These things are sick. Locked in.
Can you see it? The worst is over. The monsters in my head are scared of love. Finding people, listen up. It's never too late to change our love. So don't let them steal your life.
Alright, first black diamond, go. Yeah, we are. Let's go. Let's go. Oh my gosh.
Found a nice little spot for lunch. Good views. So I found my favorite spot on the hill. It's over here. The lift was super busy, but we got like a little mogul section over here, and then there's some pump tracks that are pretty fun. Stop for a little beer. How's it going for you?
Well, trying to figure out how to ski when I came here. Got wiped out a few times on the green, by the way, on the little kid hill. Got a little worried. Chicks started chirping me. It's fine. No problem. Safety first, right?
Been fun. I just finished my first black diamond. Me and Wilson did it. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be honest. I'm excited to go hit these trees with Wilson in a minute. It sounds pretty fun.
Catch you guys at the end of the day. All right, so the trail that me and Scott took, I don't know where he's sitting up there, has a river at the end of it, so you can't, if we weren't supposed to go on this run, but Scott tumbled under the lift a couple times. That was funny. Yes, go over. Last run of the day from the very top, going all the way to the bottom. I think it's like 3 miles. I never got a video when we got done skiing, but we made it to the bottom. It was a little bit of an adventure. Resort closed down and we weren't sure we would make it, but we did. So we're here now, and I'm going to get some water, a water bottle, and I'm also going to look for the hostel I guess my mom and her friends stayed in when they were in Interlaken. I found it. So there it is. She'll appreciate that. Nice. Really expensive fondue. Gonna try it though, we're excited. I got classic, you got truffle, you got bacon garlic.
That's super hot.
So much better than the herring. We're in Murin today. I'm alone. Super pretty town. Probably won't record as much today just because got a lot of ski footage yesterday. This is literally the scariest place I've ever been skiing in my entire life. It's the floor below me. And it's literally above the clouds. So I made it to the building we've been seeing the whole time. Right there. It's where you can get brunch. But check out this view. It's pretty insane up here. I did not expect this at all. Probably the last time I'll ever be up here. Hopefully not, but yeah, so the run goes all the way over there. It's a really long run. Found a skating place out here in the village. And they have hockey too. I had some friends, but they left me, unfortunately. All right, I'm about to head back down, meet up with Aiden and Red.
What's up, guys? Hope everyone had a good day. Me and Red had fun castle hopping and seeing some caves. Sounds like Wilson had fun skiing. We're here at the Funky Chocolates factory. We're trying their famous hot chocolate. I got a little Bailey's in mine. They also have a brewery right next door, so they've got a partnership, and they've got some good brews here. Good. I don't know if it was worth $16, but it was pretty good.
Red said the chocolate was crazier than anything he's ever had.
It's pretty solid.
Oh, we stopped to get some chocolate before we left. Red's drinking his beer from last night.
I finished it off and get my money's worth.
Went to the Hangover Bar. There was a mafia there.
It was a group of guys who controlled the whole place. So
Yeah.
Mafia's just a title that I used for.
From guys who controlled the whole place, they just owned it. Show them the view right now he's got.
It's beautiful here. Having the Swiss chocolate. One last look out in the Alps. Red had to come to the thug part of town because he needed to feel like he was home.
Reminds me of the good old days, you know.
Now we're leaving. All right, we got the Lux boys and Elliot here today. He's a little messed up already.
Hey, let's go!
Yeah, first Saturday of Carnival. Apparently it's bigger tomorrow though.
Who doesn't love a guy with a keg in his bag, right? Big week ahead, vlog.
Hallo.
What's up?
Mag ik jullie wat vragen?
English?
Oh.
It took a while, but we found the parade. Yeah, very good, very good, very good. And do I look amazing? Yeah. You say I'm this stuff? Yeah.
I live in the best country ever.
But you're dressed in not even our clothes. You're dressed in their clothes and singing that our national anthem during their time.
As a fucking
During their
cancer
time.
patient right
Biggest
now.
piece of shit.
Different things. Mainly is just a little video of them throwing this stuff. This is Erica. She's gonna be in the vlog for the day. We're here at Carnival. It's about 3:30 p.m. on a Friday. We're out here. We're running around. Life is good, man.
The goat is fat.
Oh, yeah. Today I'm in the small town of Oosterbeek in the Netherlands, which is by Arnhem, which I plan on going today also. The Battle of Arnhem actually took place around here, and that was under the Operation Market Garden, which was during World War II. The operation was, I think at the time, the biggest airborne operation that had ever happened. I think it still might be the second largest. But essentially the idea was that the 101st U.S. Airborne Division would drop at Eindhoven, the 82nd would drop at Nijmegen, and British 1st Paratrooper Division would drop at Oosterbeek. And they were supposed to hold the towns until the 30th Corps could move from the south to where the Allied lines were. And the objective of this was to capture the bridges. So I'm going through the museum right now, and I found John Frost's horn, which he had left at the bridge, but was discovered later on. I'll talk more about him later. Just finished up inside there. It was really cool. It was a really cool museum. One last thing I want to point out before I head to the cemetery is that the Memorial Museum, which I was just in, actually served as the headquarters of the British after they took over Oosterbeek. Also, towards the end of the operation, the Poles actually dropped in here on the south side of Oosterbeek. The Poles actually played a big part in helping relieve the British troops, but ultimately they were blamed. The British wrote that the Poles fought poorly in Arnhem, which is funny because they never actually stepped foot in Arnhem. So I just made a stop at the Museum of Arnhem, which is an art museum here. It's normally a modern art museum, and I'm not much of a big fan of modern art. You can see out here a couple like weird statues and stuff. They actually had an expedition on art in Nazi Germany that sounded pretty interesting to me, but that was probably the coolest art I've ever seen, which probably sounds bad when I say it like that, but this actually had such a deep historical meaning for them. The other thing that I found really cool was the relationship with the military, and then also something they called blood and soil. So blood and soil was the idea that Germans wanted more living space. The blood was their ancestry, and then the soil was their living space. And they created a relationship with these, and this was used to create pro-war sentiment and, take back their relationship with the German people in the land. In case I didn't point it out already, the whole reason Operation Market Garden happened was because the Allies wanted to make a quick push to Berlin to effectively end the war, but to do that, Netherlands is full of waterways, so you need to capture bridges. I just had the chance to talk with one of the historians in there, and he told me some pretty cool stuff about this bridge. The 2nd Battalion dropped on the south side of the tracks that were by Oosterbeek, which is where the Germans had a defensive position. That's part of the reason why the other 2 divisions weren't able to actually surpass that German defensive position and join up with the 3rd Battalion to come here to Arnhem. And there was about 750 people in the 3rd Battalion that moved along the river here from that direction, pretty much undetected. So the city was pretty much undefended because no one here really thought anything was going to happen. Allied soldiers took up position over here on the north end of the bridge, and they tried to take the bridge the first time, but the machine gun nests that were on the bridge held them off, and they tried again that night. Actually, this is one of my favorite stories, but the flamethrower actually for the Allies ignited an ammunition dump on the bridge, so the bridge went up in flames. It wasn't structurally destroyed, but I can't imagine what that would have looked like. Ultimately, they still failed to take the bridge, though, and they ended up hunkering down in the city over here. Now, the thing that guy told me that I thought was super cool, the Panzer divisions that were still in the region actually were supposed to be shipped back to Germany. And the reason they were still here was because the commander of that division basically said, it's too nice of a day, so we're going to stay here till Monday. Well, when were the Allies here? They got here on a Sunday. The Allies actually saw tanks crossing this bridge, and they thought that the British 30th Corps was finally here to relieve them. But it turns out it was the Germans, and they were able to take some of them out with their Piats, but ultimately they were just completely surrounded from every side. The fighting in the city became super intense. They eventually had to surrender, but fighting continued for a couple more days in Oosterbeek. I asked him, is this the original bridge? and he told me that it's actually not. The reason for that is because the Allies ended up bombing it after the Battle of Arnhem, because Arnhem essentially kind of became a no man's land because it was so destroyed. So I'm pretty sure this is where the machine gun nests would have been as they were trying to attack across the bridge. Well, this is me standing up here on the bridge, and I'm not even sure the Allies ever made it this far. One of the other interesting things he told me was over there was actually a bridge that other forces were thinking about taking, but determined that because the Germans destroyed it, they wouldn't be able to. But today they think that they actually would have been able to. Well, I can officially say I crossed the Arnhem Bridge. Might not be the original, but puts into perspective how far they really would have had to go. All right, so 5:45 a.m. right now. We decided to just rip the bars all night.
Paid $12 at the bar. We'll pay $40 from the Uber to a place we're gonna Uber back in 2 hours.
No sleep for the wicked tonight. Heading to the train station now and see you guys in Delft. So we just finished up at the Delft Royal Blue Factory where they make earthware. Yeah, earthware. There's an interesting history about it. Basically, the East India Dutch company was here, started trading porcelain with China. Everyone here became interested, so Delft started creating it themselves. All right, we're in Zanshans right now. We just learned how to make some of these clonkers. Just try to look good in the camera.
No, honestly, shoes aren't as bad as you think.
Dude, they're very comfortable. Got a nice selection over here too. I'm gonna buy these little shoes to remember it. So behind us is the first Albert Heijn, which is a grocery store here. We got a little piece of candy, so that was pretty cool. Another interesting thing was they have a death door on these homes, and it's a door that's raised up. I don't think there's any around us right now, but there's one over there. And basically, you went in there when you got married, and you only left when you died. And it was kind of weird because we actually just saw someone being taken out in a casket.
Scary thing just happened. Bus is gone. We just left with all our stuff. So, now we're in some random rest stop next to a highway. Calling a Bolt. So the Bolt's gonna pick us up.
So we just got to the Van Gogh Museum. Last day in Amsterdam for now. We'll be back, but we're trying to hit up a few last museums before we leave. So here's the ship I was talking about. So the ship's a replication of the Amsterdam, which apparently crashed in 1749, I think, which apparently you can still see off the coast of England. So this ship was established by the VOC, which was the Dutch East India Company. It was basically established in 1602 to establish trade between the Netherlands and Asia. I'm on the top of the ship right now, and if you look right there, it's apparently what the crew used as a toilet. The VOC was actually kind of appointed by the parliament here in the Netherlands to actually kind of fight on their behalf, and they became a sovereign body, and there would be investors, and they would invest in the company. So whenever the VOC took over a new region or a new colony, that obviously produced more trade and made more money, so investors would get a return of that. Besides Rembrandt, we made it to our last stop of the day. We came to the Art Museum. It's currently a temporary exhibit with Julius Caesar that I was interested in seeing. After Caesar walked on Rome, Pompeii wasn't completely done yet, but he ended up kind of retreating with his troops to Greece, and that's where Caesar defeated him in 48 BCE. This marked the end of the 450-year-old republic. Caesar set off on obviously military objectives, but he also focused on a strong central government and also reforming public life and the plebeian class, which was important to him. All right, we're at our final museum for the day. We're at Rembrandt's house. Moved here with his wife when he was about 30. Made a lot of success here. Ended up moving away though for reasons yet to be discovered. But a lot of his paintings here, and it's restored to how it was when he lived here. His first wife's name was Saskia, which that's who lived here. And when she died, she was actually buried in the Outkirk Church, and that's where we went to. I don't think I got any video from there, but there were 60,000 bodies under that church, and she was one of them. I am in Hagendange, France, or however you pronounce it. But today we're going to Verdun. Right when I get to Verdun, I want to find a bike to rent and hopefully go visit some of the sites on the left side of the bank. When we talk about Verdun, it's a super interesting battle because it really had no military importance. Germany's goal in the battle was to what they called bleed France white. So essentially they wanted to attack a position that they knew France would pour a dump of troops in and that Germany could keep picking them off and essentially win a battle of attrition by just killing as many French as possible. Now the reason for this was because Britain was kind of the superpower of the Entente, so their goal was to take Britain's sword out of their hand, which was the French. If they thought if they could get the French to agree to a treaty, that they could take over Britain. This is quickly turning into a documentary. But yeah, essentially this battle would last 300 days starting February 21st, I believe, of 1916, lasting all the way through December at some point. It would cause some of the most casualties of the war. I'm interested to see the battlefield now, and there's a lot of structures that remain, so it'll be cool to kind of figure those out and lay out the groundwork for the battle. All right, well, I look like an idiot right now. It's turning into rather the adventure. Had to rent a bike, thought it would be normal roads, no problem, right? I think it's like 15 miles away. I end up at like the highest point up here. The roads are just mud. Beautiful view, but didn't realize it was gonna be this much work. I'm on my way right now to try to go see Mort Home and Hill 308. Hopefully I do get there. Well, if you ever come to Verdun, and I'm sure not a single person watching this will, I can't recommend highly enough not to come to Mort Home on a bike. That was the worst experience I've ever had, to be honest. My bike was covered in mud. I was covered in mud. My chain broke. Yeah, there's no like road. It's not an actual road. It's like a farm road that's just covered in mud. But you know what? I got a little authentic taste. The bugs, I'm here in February. The bugs were already crazy. Every story I've read is about how bad the bugs got in summer, how muddy it was. So even in February, I got a little taste of it. Let's get to the history part of it though. This is Mort Home that I'm on. And after the initial attacks, the Germans were only focused on the right side of the bank, but the French had the time to move artillery over here to the left side of the bank. So the Germans, in order to keep moving troops up and attacking on the right side, they had to eliminate the artillery, which the artillery was not on Mort Home. It was actually on Hill 304 and another place over here, but they used Mort Home to spot the artillery, because back in the day, right, they didn't have GPS coordinates that they'd type into the artillery and it would fire right there. They actually had to sight it and see where the shells were landing and adjust from there. None of these trees would have been here because this entire landscape was shelled out. Every tree was just blown into splinters. There's craters everywhere. This hill is 7 meters smaller than it was before the battle. So initially the Germans were only trying to capture Mort Home, but eventually they realized that that wasn't going to be possible because the artillery on Hill 304 was just firing on the Germans. Every time, even if they captured the hill, the artillery would just shell them out immediately and the French would take it right back over. In May, a German command finally realized, right, this strategy isn't going to work, and they focused a two-prong attack on both Mort Home and Hill 304, which started to work better, but it wasn't until they actually focused just a single attack on Hill 304 that they were able to capture both of these. So I think this is a great spot to show you guys the artillery shelling of this hill. Hopefully you're able to see it on camera. Yeah, this is all deformed from shelling. I mean, right here, crater. You have to think too, this is filled in over time. This used to look way worse than it even is right now. The thing about being up here is it is just the eeriest feeling. I just read the sign back there. It's talking about how bad the land is here because of the battle. And it said even if you just dig a couple feet, I don't know, you're gonna find human remains and unexploded shells. So it is creepy to think I could just walk right over there where all this intense fighting took place to capture this area, and there's bodies everywhere around here because there are so many soldiers here that were just blown to pieces, and you know, their body parts were hanging from trees. It was just an awful battle. Probably one of the worst battles I've ever been to, and one of the worst battles in history in general. Apart from that gruesome stuff, this is kind of cool. They have a statue up here, and it reads, "They shall not pass." Okay, I can't say this for sure, but the walking path goes down this, and I think this might actually be an old trench that was up here. So there's two peaks to this mountain actually. There was a north Mount Hom and there was a south Mount Hom. I'm assuming this is more of the northern part of it, but this is pretty neat to be able to walk through. leaving my bike back there, so I'm a little worried, but I'm walking through this right now. I kind of want to climb up here. Also, thorns everywhere. Ow, dude. Dude, ow, dude. This is, oh my gosh. I can barely survive riding my bike up here and climbing over one trench, dude. I don't know how they did this. Like I said, there would be no trees here during the time of the battle. And I mean, these are artificially cut down. I'm not sure why, but I think it gives kind of a good picture of what it might have actually looked like, right? So the trees would have been blown apart, craters everywhere, these holes filled with mud. There's no grass, there's no plants. You get a good perspective here though of how well you can see out there. You can just picture, right, running through here as a soldier, hopping in the shell crater just to fight for a position that you fought over 12 times. We will resume tomorrow. I guess you would call it the eastern front or the right side of the bank. So right behind me is Fort de Souville. And this was, I think, the southernmost point that the Germans got to capturing Verdun. This fort's super interesting because it actually had the first use of phosphine gas. But by this time in the war, the French actually had gas masks. So it wasn't really that effective, and the French were able to hold on to the fort. After Fort Driant was taken, this was sort of the last major offensive push by the Germans on the right side of the bank. The first attack on this fort happened on June 21st when they used the gas. That one was unsuccessful, but then they launched another attack starting July 11th, which is my birthday. So this has a little bit of significance to me, I guess. This attack was sort of the turning point in the Battle of Verdun. We'll do a quick walk in here. Right when you come in, you have what I assume would be maybe a latrine. One interesting story about latrines, not that I think this is that apparently they were so bad in these forts that soldiers would actually have to wear their gas masks to go in them. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I am terrified to go in these forts right now. Not really sure if you're supposed to go over there. It's so dark you can't see anything. It's creepy, man. There's all these holes in the side over here that go down. That goes down there too. Try to jump over. Okay, I made it inside. Walking down the main corridor. Little rivet that goes back in there. And then this looks out the main. Now, I'm about 140 meters away from Fort Souville. Right behind me looks like a big clunk of metal. And this was a turret, believe it or not. It actually could raise up, fire, and then come back down. The reason for this was because artillery had advanced so much that shells could easily penetrate this. And so the ability for it to come up and then conceal itself allowed it to, right, not get struck by artillery. Apparently, it fired 600 shells during the Battle of Verdun, but it was put out of action within like a couple weeks of the battle starting because I believe one of its tubes blew up and they weren't able to repair it. So if you've ever played Battlefield 1, you might recognize one of these. And this is actually called a Pamart pillbox. But they were actually built during 1917, so after the actual Battle of Verdun. Driving by to Fort Souville, I noticed a massive trench network that ran throughout, all down that line, all the way up to the fortifications I just showed. It was a communication trench, so I'm not sure any fighting took place here. Fighting may have took place on this side, and it may have actually took place on that side too. I'm not a historian, I don't know. But you can imagine sitting down here as a soldier. So I just finished up at the museum over there behind me. They had a lot of multimedia stuff. So they had the battle maps laid out geographically. They also had a cool VR thing that took you up in one of the observation balloons. And you could kind of see what the battlefield looked like before, during, and after. And I thought that was a pretty cool experience, something I've never seen before. I know I gave an intro to the battle when I was in Häagen-Dazs, but I just kind of wanted to set the scene for when it actually started. So the Germans actually gained a big element of surprise, almost. They took control of the air before the battle, so that Britain or French reconnaissance planes weren't able to track their logistical movements. And really, the French had no idea that a battle was going to happen here, but because of bad weather, they actually had to delay the start because artillery couldn't fire where they needed to. So it got delayed about a week. This allowed French to move in some divisions and set up some defenses, but it still wasn't great. They basically had the front line of defense on the outside, but then the inner two defenses were not good at all, and we'll see that when we get to Fort Douaumont. So this is where the village of Fleury-Devant-Douaumont was, and this was the other important part during that last kind of German offensive on the Verdun line. This area was actually captured over 16 times throughout the battle. Gruesome hand-to-hand combat here. 400 residents when the battle started. The only thing that was left here was a single tree. There was only a single tree left in this entire area where 400 villagers had lived before that. So I just got to the ossuary here in Verdun, and the first thing I notice is in every single one of these windows, down this massive building that's just as long as on the other side of this, every single one is filled with bones. No one could get to the wounded here. People rotted, they decomposed here on the battlefield for months and months and months. The building was created to represent the 46 sectors, I guess, that made up the Battle of Verdun. And with inside the ossuary behind me, I'm reading, there's 130,000 unidentified victims, and their bones are inside of there, both French and German. Apart from the unidentified 130,000 victims, that bones are in the ossuary, there's another 15,000 French soldiers that were buried out here in the cemetery. During fighting in June, the 3rd Company of the 137th Regiment was actually buried alive. Shell hit, collapsed the trench, and buried everyone alive. And when they were finally found, which I think was quite a while later, everyone's bayonet was lined up, sticking up. You can tell where the bayonets were by a cross over each individual grave that would have been in here. The trenches were prone to caving in. Even though there weren't many trenches, there were still trenches. So right now I'm here at a cool example of how the French kind of combated that. They actually started to reinforce some of their trenches here with, this seems like cement, but I think the sign also mentions steel. But down here they've recreated a little bit, so they've used wood, which was still normal at the time, but you get a feel for how the trench actually was. So I just arrived at Fort Douaumont, which was at least the strongest, if not the largest, fortification in the world at the time. It cost the French over 200 million pounds in today's money to build this, and it was taken without a single bullet fired. The reason for that was because after the Germans shelled out Belgium forts and so easily took them, the French actually thought that forts no longer served a purpose, and so they actually pulled guns away from here to move to other parts of the front. So by the time the Germans got here, there was only something like 50 men and very few guns left. So for the Germans, the fort actually became a super important part to their front line and provided a lot of shelter, and was a place where men could be transitioned to the front lines. However, the fall of this fort was a major defeat for France. The other fortifications were almost instantly manned and defended a lot tougher than this was here. So this is my first step into the fort. There's some pretty cool stories I want to tell. I'm not sure how true the theory is, but they say that Germans were trying to heat their coffee with their flamethrowers. They ended up igniting an ammunition dump. I think killed over 100 men here. When the French saw this and the huge explosion inside, they actually tried to counterattack the fort and take it on, I believe, May 22nd. Ultimately, it failed, but it was interesting that there was a counterattack on the fort just because the Germans were supposedly trying to heat up their coffee with flamethrowers. You might notice this is like relatively underground fort, still hard to penetrate by itself. But over in that direction is Fort de Vaux, where we're going next. But the French forts were actually set up in a way that they could help defend each other from attacks. So Fort Douaumont wasn't necessarily supposed to take on an attack by itself. It was supposed to be assisted by Fort de Vaux, and that's why the French network of forts in the area is pretty intense. Last thing I'll show up here, we got one more pillbox. I think I've already shown that. But right here's the turret, and it's actually raised. So you can see the gun. The other one wasn't raised. So before Fort Duval, I actually want to make a quick stop at a place called Frontier Hill. My hair's crazy. I believe, from my understanding, that this was actually completely destroyed during the battle, and that's ultimately why this is one of the forts where you can't get into. Well, there actually was a gate that was unlocked. This looks like a gun port to me, with some railing to be able to maneuver it. I was wondering why I walked in, why the ceiling was so low. It looks like there's another layer here that maybe machine gunners could have had a little nest out of while artillery fired down over here. Yeah, so just a small part of the fort, but an interesting one nonetheless. So that thing died on me. So I just had to ride an electric bike all the way uphill. If it doesn't sound bad to you, it didn't sound bad to me either. That was awful. Fort Duval looks kind of similar to Fort Douaumont to me, but let's check it out and I can tell you guys a little bit about it. Although the fort doesn't look like much, it actually was of extreme importance because it had the best view of the enemy's front lines over here on the right side of the bank. The Germans actually used their flamethrowers within the fort. Well, they tried to at least. It didn't end up working because the flamethrowers actually smoked out the Germans and made it so they couldn't see, were disoriented, and they actually had to retreat the fort because of their own flamethrowers. So on June 1st is when the most intense fighting took place here. And there was over 600 defenders in this fort, even though it was built for only 200 or something. But they were able to successfully fend off the Germans for a week with super intense fighting. But they actually had to surrender because the water supply, they were licking water off these walls. I don't know if you've been able to tell, but there's a lot of condensation here. Wasn't enough to keep them going though. And they were surrounded by the Germans, and without a water supply, they unfortunately had to surrender. I kind of like this fort because they actually have some areas set up. For example, they have some stretchers here where the first aid would have taken place. A room with a bed and desk, assuming an officer would have stayed here. They have a pigeon house. They used to use pigeons to communicate from the front lines back to supply lines and commanders and whatnot. This is another example of laboratories here in the bunker. They also stored chlorine in some of these rooms around here. And it was used to disinfect the laboratories. But I just read that it was also used to burn the bodies of victims here. So they would burn corpses in here as well. Well, I don't want to make this whole video just about a battle. So I'm running through the park right now. And when I first stepped in this town, I was a little worried. It was a little sketchy, but no, it's a super cute town. I had a good dinner last night at an English pub. Tonight I think I'm gonna try a French taco. Nice view of the river. Just gonna ride down this and enjoy my last time, and we're done. Here's one good view of the city too. Got the Prussian Gate back there, little barge bar. Maybe I'll try that out tonight, have a drink there. All right, if you are ready to watch the most homeless thing you've ever seen in your life, I have to return this bike tomorrow. There's mud all over it from the first day. Sitting under the most popular bridge in town, I'm gonna use the river water and a sponge to wash down my bike right now. Get the bag first. Haribo Happy Life gummies, best gummies I've ever had. If you ever see those, try them. It's the only way I can clean it. You speak English? There's the first people to question me. Well, it took about 30 minutes, but here's the final product. I guess I didn't really show it to you at the beginning, but that was weirdly kind of satisfying. I enjoyed it. I got the French taco. It's actually gas. Let me get one more bite. Fries, mayonnaise, cheese, ground beef, cordon bleu. Taco Sunday. Definitely a cool monument in the evening when they light up both sides like this. Just stopped at the bakery. This is a Swiss thing. I'm gonna try this. All right, first French baguette. Just raw dog it. It's bread, but it has a nice crisp to it. All right, well, we just got out of the States Gallery over here. We're in Stuttgart today. Random German city we found. Basically a ton of art in there. Saw some Monet, Renoir. What was your favorite painting? Very insightful, man. Well, we just finished up at the History Museum here. Thought it was pretty cool on the inside, so I wanted to get that in the video. Saw some of the earliest forms of art from about 40,000 years ago. Learned a little bit about the Celts, Franks, just kind of the whole history of the region. Where we are now, called like the something plots, stoop plots or something. But it's a cool area though. Yeah. That is what it is. The Schloss Plots. Just wasted an hour trying to figure out the trains, but we met a cool guy on it, so I guess it was worth it. But now we're at the Porsche Museum. I'm not the biggest car guy, but he is, so we'll let him give you the history when we're done here. Going to the Porsche Museum right now. One of the starfighters they used in Star Wars was actually created by Porsche designers, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, pretty neat museum though. We'll see what Ben thinks when we're done. My favorite car we saw, I know nothing about cars, but it was like a shark version of, I don't even know what type, but I'll put up on screen. What's your favorite?
I'm gonna say the first V10, the Carrera GT.
Well, the trains did not treat us well today, so we missed out on Mercedes and Esslingen, or I don't really remember, but a cool little town next to us. But we got our poutine and some fries, had a nice meal. All right, we're gonna try to catch this train before the train strikes, so we don't get stuck here for days.
Meal we've ever had, sit-down place. That's probably a 10-minute meal.
Yeah, within 10 minutes we were in and out of a sit-down restaurant. I like this stretch down through here. Somehow we're here at midnight, train strike going on. Our last hope is a bus, or else we're homeless in this sketchy ass town. Sometimes the trains get the best of you here. We're starting the way off to Poland about the same way we finished our way to Stuttgart. Homeless for the night, a little vibe. Trying to ride this out till 4:30, and then we'll head to the airport.
It works out.
Yeah, we will. It's worked out perfectly. We just got Warsaw, Poland. Hopefully get some good, cheap Polish food. That's what I'm most excited about for this little trip that we're doing. I got dumplings and a chicken leg.
A little potato and a salad.
$3. Good.
Pretty solid.
Meat. I love it. We stopped at Abe Blickel, I think is how you say it, after that restaurant that we were just at. Yeah, cheesecake's good. It's a fluffy cheesecake. So we just stopped at the Church of the Holy Cross, which is behind us. And everywhere in Warsaw, Frederick Chopin is pretty popular. But inside of the church, they actually had his heart, which was found in a catacomb.
I don't know if I believe.
No, it actually is. I looked it up. They found it in a catacomb sometime in the later 1800s. A journalist did, and it was donated to the church. This is the University of Warsaw, and it still is, but this is where Chopin lived and studied. But outside of the library, in the sidewalk, it was all torn up and holes and whatnot. Apparently they were bullet holes from the fighting in Warsaw during the time. We made it in one of the classrooms. It's actually a pretty sick setup. They literally used chalkboards. We just walked by a class where they were only using that. It's like 50 years outdated. The other thing that I found super interesting was that the gates that we walked through to walk into the campus, during the 1930s, the students here actually put up banners and were protesting for a Jewish ghetto. The Polish students here, and Poles in general, obviously not all of them, actually protested for segregation between them and the Jews. I want to listen to this so bad. I looked it up, and apparently 85% of the old town was basically fully destroyed during World War II, but there was just a massive project after the war to restore it all. So I'm assuming there's some authentic buildings still here, but a lot of it was rebuilt. What are your thoughts on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier?
Oh yeah, I would not want to be that guy.
So we officially made it to Old Town. Can't take. This is like the White House for Poland, where the president lives. This building and the hotel next to it were the only buildings in this entire area that weren't affected by bombing after the Warsaw Uprising. And that's because the Nazi government was set up in these buildings. Behind me over there is the Capsule Hostel, which is where we're staying. You get your own little box, you close yourself away. Anyways, I'm going to Chopin's museum right now. I've been saying it wrong, it's Chopin. I'm going to his museum right now though, because I'm gonna go to a concert after where someone's gonna play it, so I gotta learn a little history first.
Nie zrobisz dobrego. Niczego dobrego się po tobie nie spodziewamy, bo wie...
Well, I didn't have getting intertwined in a Warsaw Democrat abortion march on my bucket list, but here we are. Level 27.
Too easy with the Netherlands IDs. I'm saying they hate Americans, but they love.
She spoke to us.
Gonna check the fake. Gonna check the fake.
She couldn't speak any English?
Oh, she speaks Russian then, dude. What?
Behind me right now is the Warsaw Uprising Monument. It commemorates the largest underground resistance against German forces during World War II. It started on August 1st of 1944 and ended up in about 16,000 deaths of actual resistance fighters, but over 100,000 deaths of civilians due to Nazi executions following the uprising. Right behind me is actually a piece of the Jewish ghetto wall. In 1940, they basically herded all the Jews in Poland into this ghetto, which was a little over 700 acres. I read that there was an average of 9 people per room. The Germans killed hundreds of thousands of people here, whether that was because of hunger or deportation to concentration camps. This ultimately led to, in 1943, there was another uprising here. So I just finished up at both the Polish Museum for Jewish History as well as the Warsaw Uprising Museum. I want to show off a little bit. I'm more in the modern part of Warsaw now, which is where we went to the club last night. I've walked a couple hours today all around the city, and I've literally not seen a bad part of it yet. We just got pulled over by the cops for doing a slight...
Little jaywalk.
little jaywalk
Flashing
going.
green and then turned around halfway. We didn't realize the cop was right there. We had like a little horn goes, oh fuck, the bus is trying to go. And we just keep going like, alright, yeah, whatever, like just a little warning. Wilson's like, oh, I think they're gonna pull us over. I'm like, dude, come on.
Because they kept doing little
They're gonna
honks
pull
at
us
us.
over, they're gonna arrest us for like doing a little jaywalk, a little bit, like a little red light walk, no way. So now he just like opens the van, he's get in, one by one. I was like, I'm not getting in there, like the fuck's about to happen? Is this even the real police?
Next thing you know, his fake's falling out of his wallet as
Yeah,
he's getting
so
a full
basically-
pat down. We made to Krakow, got the birthday boy looking for some cheap eats. Got like an hour before we go to Auschwitz, so just gonna check out what we can down in the center. Ready for the video. But yeah, this is what we saw at Auschwitz. Alright, we got up early, had a good night at the shop bar. Got pretty destroyed, yeah. Got some cool people, they showed us the ropes. We had some beer with syrup in it. Behind me is Wobble Castle, and the story is that there's a dragon that lived under the castle, and King Krakow lived here, and it would eat everyone. One night, basically fed it a sheep with, like a fake sheep with something in it, and led it to the Vistula River, where it died. But the real history is this was here from about the 13th century, and a lot of the leaders of Poland lived here. Behind us is Oskar Schindler's factory, where he saved over 1,000 Jewish people's lives by taking them in from the ghetto to work here. Even though they weren't paid and it wasn't great conditions, he used profits from the factory to, help feed them, give them a life outside the concentration camp. Yeah, if you've ever watched Schindler's List, this is it in all its glory. Today I'm at Waterloo, which is where Napoleon fought his last battle. So behind me is basically where Wellington and his men would have been, but that wasn't built till after the war. It was to commemorate actually Prince William of Orange, which was Prince of the Netherlands at the time, so it's kind of interesting. Apparently he was killed in this spot during the battle, probably during the cavalry charge, I would assume that happened here. Other than that, I'm heading to Hougoumont right now, which was another very important part of this battle. Napoleon's goal was to split both the Prussians and the Duke of Wellington. He actually wanted to do 2 attacks on the left flank of Wellington, which is over that way. This is behind me, and I'm on the far right flank of the Allies right now with the farm of Hougoumont right behind me. The thing about the positioning of Wellington's troops, they had the ridge, which allowed them to have cover, but they also tired out the French soldiers running up the hill, and also it's a perfect day to come here. One of the things that Waterloo is famous for is being super muddy during the day of the battle, and that's true right now. So the troops really struggled, the horses really struggled as well to maneuver the battlefield at quick speeds like they normally would be able to. So this is Hougoumont farm, and on the left side of it you can kind of see the small valley. The reason that was important was because if the French were able to manage to move around Hougoumont and get behind the right flank of the Allies would no longer have that ridge to help protect them, and French forces would be able to push behind that. You can see I'm standing here at the end of Hougoumont farm. Another reason that played into the loss here at Waterloo was that during around late afternoon, the French cavalry actually attacked alongside the farm over here. The reason they did this was because the commander thought the Allies were actually retreating and wanted to take advantage of that, but it turned out they were just moving back into position. They formed the famous box, which was used to defend cavalry charges, and they just destroyed the French cavalry. The fact that the French used too many men here that could have been better used on France's right flank to defend against the Prussians, as well as the disastrous cavalry charge that went up along the hill. Both of those reasons play a decent sized part of why Waterloo was a failure for Napoleon and France. We just did a little walking tour of Brussels.
6 hours now.
This is the Grand Palace. Pretty interesting area. I just got to try some Belgian chocolate before we head off to Dublin. Solid. We've been traveling all day. Finally got to Belfast. Got the Titanic Museum behind us. Gonna be doing a little day trip tomorrow to some locations in Northern Ireland, see some of the nature around here. Scott's reminiscing over the HMS Caroline. We got some love locks over here. We'll get one and write the HMS Caroline on. See you guys tomorrow on the North Coast. Oldest licensed whiskey distillery in the world, 1609, I think. I got the Bushmill Distillery exclusive Acacia and the 12-year-old Distillery Reserve, which are, you can only get these here at the factory.
I got their original, and I got their 10-year-old malt, and then the 12-year-old malt, same as Wilson had.
It's good. Strong, but definitely the honey, I like it. I actually like that one a lot. There's a big rugby game.
Match rugby.
Ireland versus Scotland. I guess they do it every year, so we might try to come get a scarf. Everyone's walking to the stadium. Got a cool girl on the bus, so I think we might go meet up with her and her friends. We got 100 on the game, so yeah, we need Ireland minus 15.5. The stadium's actually right outside the window. We made a few slight miscalculations yesterday. We may have blacked out a little sooner than we thought, but we had fun. Chilling out here at the beach. Came to Sandy Mount Beach or something like that. Took literally an hour to walk from the beginning just to the water out here. Hey. back from Dublin, and right now I'm in Liège. I came here because the dude at the place that we were in Charleroi said they have the best waffles here, so I came to try those today. I got original and cinnamon. Little crunchy bits in it, but it's really fluffy. Love it. Nice little spot out here. One thing I'll just never understand about when I'm in these cities is what these people do. Because I'm here on a random Wednesday, and I swear to you, there's thousands and thousands of people walking around these streets in a random town in Belgium. I'm about to go in this museum over here, the Museum of Walloon Life. This has been the worst museum I've ever been to. An embalmed head from supposedly the last person who got their head cut off by it. I'm not sure how many guillotines still exist, but I'm sure there's not many that have actually been used that still exist to this day. So this actually is pretty cool. This made up for it. So the stairs that I'm on right now are apparently famous, so I figured I'd have to walk them. Got a while ago. Not very fun. I'm walking on this nice little river walk. You know, it's not by any means top 10 city for me, but it was nice to see it for a day, and there were some cool parts that I liked. Tomorrowland tomorrow. Gotta figure out how we're gonna get there, but it should be a really good time. Well, after a train, a bus, another train, and an Uber, we finally made it. I don't have much to say, so I'm just gonna let the video do the talking.
Feeling the lungs inside you, and the blackened eyes make my way into your mind. Just to know what you knew. Restless every time we start laughing as lost control. It's paradise with honesty right now. In the dead of the
Well, back on the ski lift. What a day, man. That was probably one of the best days of my life, to be honest. It was a sick festival. I gotta make it to the summer one eventually. Get J-Bag going there with me. I know he wants to. We got the Atomics today, but yeah, last time skiing in Europe for a while, probably. Snow's not good, but we'll have fun. We'll make it a good day. All right, I gotta get one video of skiing, so I got a little creek behind me. Big mountain. I have no idea where these trails are going, bro. No idea. I got a good full day of skiing in. It might pass Switzerland. It's close. It's tough to say. The fam's coming to town, so they'll be in the next vlog.
Hey guys, we're in Kukenhof Tulip Gardens. Bra moment.
I think that will be enough for now. Lily's so excited to be here.
Oh. These are pretty.
All right, we're having a contest so you can have the best picture today. She's the judge. Are you gonna be biased?
No, definitely not.
Is
She has
it
the
wet?
best chance of winning right now. Three nights?
So she's gonna be biased, I guess.
Wilson won.
It's very beautiful to me. We got to Munich, didn't record at all in Maastricht, I don't think. But what'd you think of it?
It's cool.
Did you like the spa day?
That was really nice.
So we're about to do a free walking tour right now, learn a little bit about the city. A cool spot. The clock up there should move. We just finished up the walking tour.
My favorite fact was, oh geez, you're putting me in the spot.
I thought it was pretty cool how Hitler basically walked into a beer hall, shot his gun, and started the first coup. It didn't work out, and he wasn't very popular at the time, but doing that gave him a lot of popularity.
Maximilian basically gave 30,000 troops to Napoleon, and Napoleon recognized that by making him the first king. I thought that was pretty
Yeah, first king of Bavaria.
Most excited to go try an Augustiner,
Yeah.
which is the oldest beer
in Germany made by the monks.
I like the two lions, and one was pointing to the the church, and it had his mouth closed because like you can't like speak if you didn't like God or something like that. And the other one had its mouth open
To the law building.
to the law building.
Because you can give your opinion about law.
One cool thing also is the place behind us is the Haus der Kunst, which was the art museum that the Nazis created to do an exhibit to mock modern art at the time. So it's the last Third Reich building surviving here. We went to Dachau. It was super cool. Tell your fun fact. I know you wanted to say that.
Okay, so there's meant to be 6,000 people at this concentration camp. That's like the only amount of people they could hold. And eventually, at one point, it got up to 60,000 people. So 10 times that.
And what was the reason for that?
Because the Russian march or something like that. It was like the Russian.
Yeah, when they had the death marches, they brought a lot of the Eastern European camps to Dachau. All right, what did we do last night, Lily?
I went to bars.
So Lily, you had a lot of fun at the Hofbrauhaus.
No, I didn't actually. He's really mean.
The Hofbrauhaus was started by, I think, William V as a state beer tavern to help raise money because they were kind of poor. And now today we're in Salzburg.
Melted chocolate melted in my
Yeah.
pocket. And that looks like I pooped myself.
How's the water, Lily? What's your favorite part about going places?
I would swim in it.
We got another fountain here. I thought Mozart was pretty cool. They had his violin in there. They had a couple locks of his hair, which was kind of weird to me. Got a better appreciation. I'll have to listen to the magic flute. I think that was like one of the last things he composed. We just got to the Hohensalzburg Castle, which was built in 1077. Castle's up behind us. The only thing I knew about the castle was the German peasant uprising here. But one of the names that the soldiers got was bowl washers because to fool the peasants, to break the siege, they painted the one last bowl they had every day and showed them to make them think there was more food. And ultimately, the peasants retreated because they believed it.
Look at the mountains surrounding us. It is beautiful up here, guys. Honestly, let's just say I was a little tired, so I wasn't paying attention that much. So, whoops. Oh, yeah.
I know you didn't just spray that on me. Say goodbye to Salzburg.
Peace out, bro. Shaka.
We are making our last stop at Augustiner. Cheers to a good trip. Lily.
Cheers to a great trip.
Cheers.
Lemonade.
Not lemon
Cheers.
This is
My mom, dad, and Lily left. We had a good time in Munich and Salzburg, though, some of my favorite cities so far. I decided to make a stop at Nuremberg on my way home. And so that behind me is actually the courthouse where the Nuremberg trials took place. And if you're not sure what that is, it's where the 24 most prominent Nazi leaders actually were tried for their war crimes. How do you try people whose crimes are legal in their country, right? They created a London Charter where basically France, England, Russia, and the United States were able to set up prosecutions here and try those 24 victims. I believe 10 ultimately ended up being hung. I also crossed the street to get a little better of a view, but I remembered one more thing I wanted to say before I go in. And it was that the Allies were worried about actually having enough information to prosecute everyone at the trials. The thing was that the German nationality, like something about them even to this day, is that they're very detail oriented and they document everything. So there were crates upon crates of just documented evidence of all the Nazi war crimes. The last thing I want to note was that military tribunals also don't use a jury. That's because of expertise issues, also time issues, different factors. But I thought that was a weird quirk of military tribunals. There was 4 judges from different countries, so they actually kind of made up a jury of themselves. Like the Russian judge wanted like really harsh punishments, and some of those were overturned by the other judges. So they had to work together, and I think it took 2 days to create the final verdicts. So I just did my first stop of the day, which is the 101st Airborne Museum behind me. The 101st Airborne was created in World War I, but never saw action, so they were disbanded. but they were brought back in World War II. It was the 101st and 82nd were created after the Americans noticed some of the success that the German paratroopers were having. After Eisenhower realized how large the German offensive was, he immediately sent the 101st here to Bastogne and the 82nd to a village nearby. I can't remember the name, but the 101st came here to defend Bastogne, along with, I think, the 705th Tank Regiment, as well as a mix of infantry regiments that were retreating back, and field artillery. In total, there would be about 18,000 troops that would be here in Bastogne, fully surrounded by the German divisions. A lot of fighting would happen on the western side, but one of the famous companies is Easy Company of the 506 101st Airborne Division. And I'm not going to talk about them too much right now because we're going to go there tomorrow to see where they were entrenched. One of my favorite stories in here, though, was I'm a big football guy, so the 101st and 82nd were actually stationed outside of Reims, catching some rest after Operation Market Garden, and they were supposed to play a football game between each other on the 25th in Reims. That was cut short by about a week, and unfortunately they had to fight here in Bastogne. So right here behind me is Liberty marker 1147. These markers actually start in Normandy and follow the path General George Patton's 3rd Army, ending here in Bastogne. Got some pizza and wings. We got the baseball going over here. And when I was in Belfast, 2 girls at the bar from America, one of them, his dad is like high up in the Philly organization. For some reason they gave me a Philly koozie, so I just used that on my last beer, which was actually really good. It was the Jupiler, but it's like the blue. Yeah, let's try an airborne beer. Cheers to the 101st Airborne. It's not my favorite beer, it's a triple blonde, so... On my way this morning to the foxholes. There's so many snails out. I feel like I haven't seen a snail in years. He's chill though. I have to walk through this forest here, and I just wanted to share it because I think it's kind of cool because it gives an idea of just how tough it would have been to move through the Ardennes. This actually looks like these trees were planted here because it's pretty specific rows, but this is what the forest around the area looks like. One last super random thing, it's just for myself. When me and my brothers were little, we had a place across the street that we called Dinosaur Mountain. I mean, this is just a literal dirt mound, but yeah, I thought that was just funny that it reminded me of that. Well, this is the area around Bastogne. I am at Bois Jaquez. This is where Easy Company was during the Battle of the Bulge. Because of their popularity, I think there can be a misconception that Easy Company was involved in really heavy fighting during the Battle of Bastogne when they were surrounded. But it's actually not true. They arrived here on the 19th and were brought here, but most of the time they were either in regimental reserve or saw little to no fighting. However, they still did experience casualties here during this time because the weather was so bad. It was the worst winter in 30 years. Also, yesterday in the museum, I think one of the Germans said it reminded him of the Eastern Front, which obviously, if you know anything about military history in Russia during the winter, not a great place to be. You can imagine having to dig in a super frozen ground in one day and kind of living in this hole for about a week, basically, is what they had to do. I want to show one more foxhole right here. This one is really well preserved. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a story to tell, but I'm not sure I have one. At the end of the woods, hopefully, maybe we can see some buildings. The city of Foix is over there, and that's where we're gonna go next, and that's kind of where the first major combat for Easy Company came in the Battle of Bastogne. So I'm walking down the road to the town of Foix right now. Behind me, we can see those woods. And this is where the attack on Foix, they would have been running over this meadow right here. This is where I came from, was the woods right over there. I don't know if you can see it. So they ran across this meadow, but where I'm standing is more of the center of the attack. And there was fighting sort of down that road. I Company would have been over there more. And then right down this street was where Shifty Powers shot a sniper who was kind of wreaking some havoc. This building right over here was actually the Allied headquarters, and it's the story of why I'm eating nuts. So during the battle, Brigadier General McAuliffe was in command of the troops here in Bastogne. On December 22nd, the Germans suggested that the Allies should surrender. Ultimately, he came up with the reply of simply nuts. The Germans were obviously confused by this, but it lifted morale in Bastogne. So I didn't think I would make it, but I'm at the Bastogne barracks, which I'm pretty excited about. They have tanks from all theaters of the war, not just tanks, vehicles, artillery. Here is the light tank M5A1 Stuart. It actually fought here in the Ardennes. That right there is called a hedge cutter. And when they landed in Normandy, they had to deal with a lot of hedges. So that was perfect for just cutting right through and opening gaps for infantry, but also allowing the tank to move through. I found a Panzer, and this is actually the last version used in the war. And because Germany, was low on materials and manpower, they actually had to reduce some things. So for example, the turret actually spun slower in this, but it was still a super strong tank and still gave the Allies a lot of problems. This is a Sherman Jumbo. So it's a Sherman, but with a lot more armor, and it also seems a little bigger to me than usual. But it bears the insignia First in Bastogne. This is the anti-aircraft and artillery room. It reminds me of how important artillery was here. Without artillery and also without the 10th Armored Division that was also here that people forget about, the troops never would have been able to survive as long as they did before Patton could relieve them. Well, that's gonna be my final stopping place here in Bastogne. Maybe my favorite, honestly, and that was at the bottom of my list. I didn't think I'd make it. I also didn't expect this, but I think this is gonna be the end of the first vlog and the first half of the study abroad. It's going too fast, man. It's been good so far. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.